Hello, it's Conscious Tea Day, and today we're talking with Geraldine, who is in the marijuana cannabis industry. She's a community builder and she's a merchant turned marketer. So we're just going to talk about breaking into the industry, her path, how she ended up getting clients, and just her whole story. So it's an exciting chat today. We're going to wait for, of course, for some people to tune in. Hey, Geraldine is here. I'm going to bring her in. Hello, hey.
Hey, I'm like, oh no, I want to see your hat the whole time.
I'm just gonna sit like this. I
It's
know I
so
kind of,
good.
thank you. I'm like, I want to just wear a hat today. So I'm like, I'm just gonna wear it.
Yo, you are like my vibe. Like, I'm also wearing orange today. We're just like,
Yay.
you're totally, I love the look. Thank you for having me, Liz.
Yes, hell yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for coming on, sharing your energy with us. We're so
Of
glad to just be able
course.
to chat with you and, just find out all things philanthropist, philanthropy, and Geraldine.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, I'm excited to be here. And
Yes.
yeah, no, I love what you guys are doing with Conscious Kitchen, and I'm glad to be part of the conversation. So
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. The Conscious Kitchen, we just released an episode last week. We got another episode coming next week. It's like we're always recording and working on it. So and you're a podcaster as well.
Mhm.
Can you name your podcast too right now?
Yes, my podcast is called Amplifier Chill. Everything is evolving around chill. So
Hmm.
it's exploring how communities make chill. So the first season features New Yorkers, myself included,
Yes.
and it's around, I talk to people about how they manage their positive well-being, which I also synonymously refer to as, chill. And yeah, and just talk about what rituals and practices that people have, talk about, disarming a conversation around what brings us no chill. I think that's
Hmm.
important too, so people can relate.
That's cool. That's cool. I
So
love that. So basically kind of diving into things that kind of break people's like chill.
exactly.
Nice.
Like I feel like one of my main questions for my last season for my guests was, tell me about what about New York brings you no chill, in a city that it like never sleeps and is constantly energized and active. There's bound to be
Yes.
something that aggravates or prevents you from finding your chill. So
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was just there. I'm still here in New Jersey, and I was in New York last weekend, and me and my husband Chris were laughing because literally every block was like a different story slash like a altercation, no chill moment. It was just like
yes,
it
I know.
was
I
so
feel
hilarious.
you. I feel
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, so awesome. So tell us a little bit about like what you do with your business within like the cannabis
Mhm.
industry and just kind of dive in and just kind of give us a little rundown.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Geraldine May Cueva. I am a merchant turned marketer, meaning previously my career started in the merchandising and buying world in fashion. I really had a lot to do with, different e-commerce businesses that were creating new retail experiences online, direct to consumer. So I love product, and the skills that I had to develop in my career as a merchant, I transferred them over to the cannabis industry, where I
Cool.
also work specifically with brands and products that I really love. And I help them grow their business. I help them, my platform Art in Times of Chill, is where it's my consulting, the name of my consulting platform, where I help I help brands build their communities, connect them to other like-minded brands, and to help them drive conscious commerce, where a lot of the brands I work with are really hyper focused on creating community and educating about the war on drugs, and just developing more purpose driven mission when it comes to driving sales, whether
Yes.
that means giving back, or just shedding light on communities that need support. Inclusivity is, one of those things that I feel like when I refer to consciousness, it's
Yeah.
something that's at the top of, my mind and all the brands that I work with. So that's really important to me as well.
Amazing.
especially when you're, connecting people and bringing people to learn together. Want to make it a safe space as possible, and a place where people can, of all walks of life, can feel like they can exist, coexist, and then I also have a podcast called Amplify Your Chill, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very obsessed with like focusing on positivity and well-being. The same goes for the products that I work with. They're 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 tapped into, helping people in a way where they find their a sort of self-awareness and consciousness around their product, whether it's cannabis touching or adjacent to, meaning, it could be ancillary products to your cannabis or plant-based lifestyle. And yeah, and I split my time between living in LA and the suburbs of LA, and
Mm-hmm.
my family lives on the East Coast. And what else? I don't know. I have a
Awesome.
platform called Sessions, which my co-host and we founded during the pandemic because we wanted to build community and drive conversation around the things that really matter in the cannabis space, like I mentioned before, around like inclusivity and social
Mm-hmm.
equity and stuff like that. So.
Yes, yes. And I also saw you also have a clubhouse room.
Oh yeah, yeah. So thank you for
Yes.
mentioning that. Shout out
Yes.
to my girl Michelle, who is a licensed counselor, and we have a conversation that we do weekly called Kind of High, Kind of Therapy, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like this intersection of talking about practices on responsibly consuming cannabis, and how we and the dialogue around like therapy, like finding therapy, and emotional, just like a dialogue around emotional intelligence. I feel like I like
Very
to
cool.
say, where we talk about how the impact of, you know, consuming cannabis or psychedelics is involved.
Yeah.
So it's really great. It's a safe space. We get a lot of men that are really open and
Awesome.
spacious with what they share,
Hell
whether it's
yeah.
their consumption or even their feelings.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really great to have a dialogue with someone that's trained in counseling, because she
Mm-hmm.
just comes up with such great
Yeah.
conversation tools, to spark any type of dialogue around, your mood and how you're feeling that day. So
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I
mhm.
came across your clubhouse room last week, just kind of like in the space, and then I was like, oh my God, I love the concept of this, just matching the two. Like I loved your bio. It was one's kind of high, one's kind of what's that? What'd you say? What was
One's
it?
one's kind of high and one's the therapist. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
um
It's so
but
good. And so,
no.
yeah, I feel like that's such a great idea, especially because, I think sometimes when people do like smoke or do partake in like in that and in smoking, you do kind of get in your head sometimes. And
Yep.
there's a lot of dialogue that happens. And sometimes it can go into like that paranoia weird part, right? But it doesn't always go in that way. Sometimes those
Mhm.
little weird paranoia parts can lead you to these bigger thoughts and discussions that are happening within your mind and in your head, and
Right.
things that you want to explore. So it'd be so cool to just like smoke, go into the clubhouse, and then be like, hey, this is what's going on, and then
No,
hear
I
from
mean
your
that's
homegirl.
exactly you. I mean, you said it better than I could actually, because I think a lot of the time when you are consuming or getting high, you can spiral through towards a thought that maybe, you were thinking about, but then it just kind of gets amplified because you have this sort of level of you've tapped into this or opened and unlocked this level of consciousness, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you might spiral to a dark place. And I think a lot of the time what the room does is hold space for people to kind of process and digest, and if not, just really feel like you're not alone in
Mm-hmm.
feeling a little bit of distress because of the pandemic, or job insecurity, or just having like a range of emotions that you just have to navigate through. I think a lot of us, and why I think we even have fun on Clubhouse, is because people just needed new interactions. I think for
Mm-hmm.
me, especially, being comfortable, being more introverted, like tapping into my introverted side, but
Yeah.
then still gaining that sort of connection, listening to someone's like authentic voice. Like I think that that's what really, helped our community grow on there,
Yeah.
and have people constantly come back because they're looking for that sort of space where they can share openly and feel comfortable, because it's
Yes.
hard topics. Like, not a lot of people don't like to talk about their feelings.
Oh
I'm
no, for
definitely,
sure.
like I'm someone that loves, it's like your podcast. Like I love the kitchen vibe of like you're just sitting in the, you know, and
Yeah.
you're talking about everything that kind of comes across your mind. And we've
Mhm.
kind of made that space the same kind of concept, you know?
So
So,
amazing.
mhm.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, there was something I was gonna say. What was it? Darn, I lost it. But yeah, I love the room. Like I love what you guys are doing. Definitely check that out. What can you tell us what days of the week that is on
Yeah, it's
Clubhouse and what the room is
usually,
called?
yeah, of course. Thank you. It's like, it's usually Tuesdays at 11 a.m.
Perfect.
And yeah,
PST.
PST, yeah.
Cool.
So
Cool.
at the
Yes.
moment, I'm not on in LA, so we didn't do it this week because I was like, I need a break. But it's just one of those things, right? Like I think, you know, sometimes like you have to, like in the same way we're doing like a live, like I think
Yeah,
the kind of you have to bring the same energy to the clubhouse, or else, you know, people won't stay in the room, or they
for
won't
sure.
feel that energy to be able to share. And I think that
Yeah.
that's important, between two of us as Asian women, being able to create that space for openness, I think is really invaluable to that room.
Yes, that's so perfect. Yeah, and if anyone's watching and doesn't know what Clubhouse is yet, Laura and I, we did do an episode on everything Clubhouse. It's on the Conscious Kitchen. It's called, I think it's episode 31, and we just dive into like everything you need to know about Clubhouse. So it's such a great episode. And then definitely check out Geraldine's room, join the conversation. It's a great place to be because with Clubhouse you can talk and you don't have to have your face, and like it's
Yep.
not recorded, and it's like, you know, it's very much like you were there in that moment and whoever was in that room heard it, and then it's like gone. So it's like nice to just kind of go out there and say whatever it is that you're feeling. So
Yeah.
yeah, and so I'd love to chat a little bit about the next subject. Is so you're in the in like in this industry, and you're second generation Filipino, right? Because your parents
Yes.
were first generation immigrant
Mm-hmm.
Filipino, and then you're second generation. So
Mm-hmm.
having that discussion with them, because I did some research and I read your intro and bio in that High Times article.
Oh yeah, yeah. Thanks. The one that yeah, I
Yeah,
wrote that one. Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Did you write the whole article?
Yeah, because like
Awesome.
it was originally featured in a print magazine called Banana Mag, and they were doing like a feature for Asians, and they asked me, "Hey, can you write this piece?" And I thought, "Oh my God, I've never formally written something, you know, but I was like, I
So
love to tell
cool.
stories." So I was like, I'll give it a try. They
Yeah,
introduced me to about 6 people, and then you know, I was able to write that piece, and then that magazine had pitched it to High Times, and then they featured it in their cultural section.
perfect.
But yeah, no, yes, you're exactly right. Like I am a second generation Filipino American. My parents immigrated here from the Philippines, and yeah, it's been amazing. It's been amazing and interesting all at the same time. You know, trying to bridge that dialogue around what they think they know about cannabis, and it being a
Mm-hmm.
drug, and it being stigmatized, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, from like the way my dad had said it, you know, in the Philippines, people think that you're a junkie if you do cannabis. And then the one thing that he had told me going into the space, when I had said like I'm going to move to California and I want to learn, he had said like, you know, you better not do anything illegal. And I was just like, yeah, you know, I won't. And I remember thinking, like feeling like that was in the back of my mind all the time whenever I was like looking for clients and getting connected with people, and just kind of like sussing them out, like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
are
yeah.
you fully licensed, or is this a real platform, or is this like, you know, how are you manufacturing your goods? But you know, it was good to have that framework, even though
Yeah.
really outlandish at the same time, because
Sorry,
it
the
helped
cat
me.
ran.
No worries. It helped me, you know, actually find a framework for myself and for our
Yeah.
intensive chill. You know, like I mentioned earlier, you know, I am really focused on working with like purpose driven businesses, and
Mm-hmm.
businesses that, you know, don't look at creating opportunities for non-white people as an afterthought, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and
Mm-hmm.
looking at the different communities, and being and knowing that, you know, inclusivity is not an option, but like the only path forward, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think in that pressure, you know, good pressure from my family in legitimizing what I do and what I did so far, is, you know, knowing that like I was looking for people that were really intentional and purpose driven, and really figuring out what that looked like for me,
Yeah.
as a consultant and as a, you know, a small business owner, but also thinking about you know, what is that going to look different? Like, how am I going to do that in a really like reputable way and keep the conversation going, right? Because it's people like you that host me to be able to tell my story, where, you know, it wasn't an impossible, it didn't seem like an impossible feat for me to get into the cannabis space, because what I did was apply what I knew I was good at, whether it was like merchandising, understanding product, building partnerships, and
Yes.
building community, and finding ways where I could apply that into cannabis. And, you know, to answer your question, it's like the way that I was, you know, like I feel like that's the easiest way to get into the space, is like to really, you know, think about what you're good at, what you like to
Yeah.
do,
Hmm.
and then also to kind of identify, like, you know, like what problems or challenges are you willing to face or that you want to solve, and try and apply that, because that'll be in that'll be real for you, that'll be meaningful for you, and it'll open up doors to find the people that align with you in that way. And I think, you know, looking for really great product or looking for people that were, you know, focused on POC, it just seemed like it became so easy once I was like, no, not doing that, moving on.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. It's so
you
important. I
know,
think, especially when you're creating like your roster of clients, that you ask those questions. And yeah, some people might not like being asked those questions, but then they're not the right client for you, because you want someone that's going to
exactly.
be transparent, not only with you, but also with their consumers, with like whoever
Hmm.
is they're trying to reach with their product. Because that's so important. It's like, where did you make this? Who's making this? Who's picking this? Who's
Yep.
rolling this? It's like, these are important questions that we need to ask. If we don't, then it's like, then they just do whatever they want and pay however much they want, and no one gets paid any fair living wages, and then it's like we're just
Hmm.
stuck in this loop of like, just not things going the right way.
No, you're right. Exactly. And I think what I learned is, you know, a lot of the time, you know, in cannabis, what's really great and what I find the most opportunistic thing for me is like actually creating a sense of change, but then also kind of reestablishing what the standards are. You know, like I came from a very, you know, like fashion was in the ways that I found innovative businesses to be a part of and build, like the fundamentals of the space are really outdated and old. You know,
Mm.
the way that you know, like inclusivity in the fashion space is like fairly new in some ways, you know,
Yeah.
like I like it's not as democratized and opportunistic for all, instead of like a certain subset of people, the way they look and, you know, the way and where they're from or the type of money that they earn, you know. So it's nice to kind of shake things up a little bit and really find and create pillars that matter, you know, where there's certain consciousnesses, you know, around those things, like helping everybody, making everyone feel included. I think those kind of things really make a difference for me, you know. Like now I'll get pitched ideas and I'm like, oh, I don't really see you doing this or that, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't mind asking like a very upfront question about that,
Yeah.
but and often sometimes I'm brought on so that they can solve that, you know, like
Hmm.
they can find ways to align their intentions with an actual action plan,
Yeah.
bring on more POC creatives and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
you know, not to say that the people that I've worked with were always doing it from the beginning. Most of them have, but even the ones that I get brought on to, sometimes, you know, they need someone to help them, guide them in that way. And I'm happy to do that once like I know they're ready and willing to do the work, you know?
Yeah, they're ready to, like, put their money where their mouth is, and like, and bring
Exactly.
on someone that really knows and is understanding of the particular space that you're in. Well,
Hmm.
thank you so much for like your work. It's important what you do, and just,
Thank you.
fighting for transparency, creating the community, because it's just always so important to continue to do
Hmm.
that. So
Yeah.
when you left New York and moved to California, you didn't really start off with that many cannabis industry probably connections, right? How did you really end up getting connected? How did you pave the way for yourself?
Yeah. So what's really interesting is, you know, for me, um, I used Instagram as a massive connecting tool. And, you know, I love kind of telling this story because when I was like fun employed,
Uh-huh.
fun unemployed, um, my best friend and I, we're basically thinking like, oh, maybe we should create a cannabis brand, you know, and we're two Asian women, grew up on the East Coast. New York was like our major city. You
Yeah.
know, we spent most of our adult life in New York. That's how we became friends,
Mm-hmm.
post college. And you know, our pastime was consuming cannabis together. So we had this very intimate friendship that was built off of cannabis. But
Yeah.
what she realized was like, wow, there's like people emerging, creating products and beautifying or being more design forward when it came to cannabis. And, you know, of course, because she had introduced me to these products as this merchant, I was like, whoa, what is this? Like, I want
Mm-hmm.
to know more about this. And, you know, to be honest, in that 2015, 20, I'm pretty sure it's like 2015, that era, I was obsessed with Instagram. It became like this tool I used where I would look at hashtags, I would go look at people's followed accounts, and I would just find these creators, makers, thought leaders, and I just engaged with them like in
Yes.
the way that I have you know, a sense of energy and enthusiasm with people. I kind of just applied that to like my own engagement strategy. Like I would genuinely look through my feed and I'm like, oh my God, I love that product, or
Yeah.
I love what you're doing, and
Yes.
be really like real with it. You know, I'm not
Yeah.
force it or anything like that, but I think that consistency I had, and probably also like an addiction I had to like finding more information, you know,
Yeah.
like it really helped open up some doors. And while had I took the risk and had the guts to move to LA, I
Mm-hmm.
felt that the consistency I saw where, yes, California had voted on recreational marijuana
Mm-hmm.
in 2016, around the same time Trump got elected. But I thought, okay, if they're going to shift to that, then I should, me as a New Yorker, move to California because from what I know, as a non-California resident, the
Yeah.
state of California has such a rich history with cannabis, whether it's
Yes.
cultivation,
Yeah.
culture, and now with legislation.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, I better move there. I'm bound to find products there. And so
Mm-hmm.
with combining that with my digital kind of strategy, I was able to just make connections and then meet people in real life. And then those relationships turned into conversations, and those conversations turned into like, you know, could I be a service provider for you? And,
Yeah.
you know, really looking at what they needed and then trying to apply what I can do to support them. So, yeah, you're right. I didn't really have too many relationships, but I think
Mm-hmm.
in cannabis, it being such a connecting tool, it became so natural to just be like, hey, you know, you're good at that. Meet this person, and like
Yeah.
this person might need this, and like, you know, and just kind of passing that stuff off. And then
Yeah.
ultimately, it became, you know, I got attached to brands and started working with them, and then it became, oh well, now I can attach the other businesses together, and now I can start talking about it like a category, and now I can start, you know, inserting it into conversations that are more common, like, you know, how do you live well? Like, how do you live well? What does wellness mean to you? What does mental health look like to you? And then my favorite, of course, is just like, you know, what is actually community when it comes to cannabis? You know, I think
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's like an element of like, you know, being able to chill and like being able to just be, you know. And I think like a lot of that is ingrained in my work with clients or even on my own platform. I just always try to integrate a little bit of like my positivity and love for product and my
Yeah.
connectivity, you know, whether it's the consumer or a brand community, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
finding ways to insert it, you know, like even like you and I, like
Yes.
as a podcast platform, and me as someone that knows people in this space, like I think the people that I work with, they should be listening to your podcast. They should be investing in the growth of the conversation that you're willing to have, because I think they intersect really well with cannabis being accepted into the mainstream, you know, more widely, and
Yeah.
being part of a dialogue, you know, as we tap into like, you know, what this consciousness that we are all trying to reach and to change in the way we live and work, and together. I think it's really important. So I like the way that organically it's like, you know, I've been able to, use my skills to kind of cross industries in a way, cross platforms,
Yeah.
and find ways to really make it make sense and really build strong bridges. Because I think the most important thing in cannabis is like it's opening up dialogue. It's what we've always needed. It's
Hmm.
what will break stigmas, and
Yeah.
it'll what really like debunk a lot of things that people think they know. And unless you're in the industry or you're an avid consumer, you don't really know that stuff. And the point is being able to normalize it in a way where it is accepted and honored. You
And
know, like
honored for
we're
sure.
not we're not just junkies. We're productive, and we're honest with ourselves and our partners, and whether they're
Yes.
personal or business. You know, so
Yeah, it's
I,
exciting. It's exciting to see the shift, just the re-education
mm-hmm,
of cannabis, of all the different plant medicines, really, right? Because
mm-hmm,
remember when like Dare used to come into school and they'd be like
mm-hmm.
shoving it in like in your face. It's like an entry drug and all this
Yep.
crazy stuff that was just like a rhetoric to really
Mm-hmm.
keep us away from these medicines, because really some of them, yeah, some of them might be like super drugs and maybe I don't recommend them, but a lot of them are plant medicines that like
Yep.
actually help us to tap into a different part of ourselves and earth. And so it's like, of course they would want us to stay away from that,
Of
so it's now we're
course.
all relearning, re-educating, educating our parents and our and
Mm-hmm.
the past generations, because they really do have like a different level of trauma with it, because
Yep.
they saw, like for me in particular, like my family's from Colombia, so they really saw like a big, the war on drugs there was really big when they were growing up. So they really
Mm-hmm.
have that as part of like, their reality and their view on like marijuana and things like cocaine, which cocaine is like just a different conversation to have, but
Yep.
it is just it's they view them the same, because like
Mm-hmm.
they're like the same thing, that you're like, oh, it's only junkie or only bums or only people that are lazy do these things.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, no, it's like it's doctors, it's lawyers, it's like it's me, it's like a grandma,
Mm-hmm.
it's like anybody, it's like it's
Mm-hmm.
not just re-educating. And so that's I feel like such an important part of the conversation, and that within that creates like the community as well.
Exactly, because I feel like, something that I always tell people is like, yes, like as a marketer, I'm leaning into education a lot, and a lot of the time, I'm learning from the people that I, support or bring into different conversations because I'm not the expert. I
Right.
can learn from my own experience with consumption and the dialogue I have with peers, but at the same time, from a marketing perspective, it makes much more sense to like bring somebody on that might be,
Mhm.
had experienced PTSD and like how they wean themselves off of pharmaceutical drugs and use plant-based medicine as
Mhm.
something that helped them heal. We don't talk enough about healing and the process it takes and the
Yeah.
dedication that it takes in order to confront some of the things that we normally numb, which like I've always felt that pharmaceuticals, and no disrespect to anyone in modern day medicine, I'm a nursing school dropout. So like my mom is a retired nurse, so I have no disrespect for
Yes, yes.
science, modern day science and medicine. But it's challenging because there's really great strides that medicine has given us, like even the vaccine, for example. But then
Right.
with cannabis and plant-based medicine, we don't take it that seriously. Why? When it's like ancestral, these are lineage of like, uses of traditional Chinese medicine, or just the herb being something that has unlocked,
Mhm.
this sense of purpose within people and a dialogue within amongst ourselves where, our society and mainstream, and not to get too into that, but it's like we numb ourselves, we do excess of every, we accept opulence and excess, and why not just be like in a present moment, and whether that's in a really negative feeling or not. Like I think, we don't honor some of the sides that like balance, like like the good and the bad, and I feel like
Right,
this level of
right.
consciousness is the conversation that we need to have about, what does it mean to heal. It's not overnight. It's not like something that you throw like one therapy appointment, or like it's an
Right.
ongoing thing, an evolution of the way that we think, and we are together with people. And I think the more people open up about it, the more people listen to podcasts like yours, like it normalizes this group dialogue around like, yes, everyone's in pain, yes, everyone has gone through something or is going through something, and why not relate to that in order to grow. It just goes to show like any of the social justice issues we went through over the last year, I feel like there's so much strength in numbers, and being able to, like, rally for the same cause, and
Yeah.
show people that, we can't do this without each other. We couldn't, take the last president out of office if we all didn't find a way to, like, have real combos with our families and talk
Yeah.
about why Black Lives Matter, all this
Have those
stuff.
conversations. Yeah, even just having the conversation, just
Yes,
starting it, which is it's hard to it's a hard
exactly.
thing to do, like just starting the conversation and getting it going, and then
It's
being
so
ready
hard,
for it's so hard, but it's
but
so
it's
important.
necessary. Yep.
And so
So
it's exciting to see what's happening now within the cannabis industry in all the different states within the United States. It's like before you know it, it's like it'll be like legalized throughout like the entire country, and that's on the path that we're going to. What other types of big trends do you see happening? Where do you see like yourself and your career going?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, such great questions. I'm like, oh my God, I could, like, talk about these things for so long. So as far as, like, trends, right? Like, um, with my client work, I support the brands with partnerships a lot of the time, right? It could be something like this, like finding a speaker for a podcast, or it could
Mhm.
be finding a boutique that, is trying to build out their category with plant-based wellness, and whatever it is, right? Connecting people in that way, whether it's B2B or B2C, so business to consumer, or to
Mhm.
another business or platform. And, for me, the trends I see are for people that already live a plant-based lifestyle, whether they incorporate organic foods, grow their own, eat vegan, use cannabis, use psychedelics. This is something that is like it's like, I always say, it's like, it's something that is already mainstream, but it's modern day media that brings it to the forefront. And
Mhm.
the work that I do keeps the brands and myself consistent with the message that we're trying to give. So whether I put a brand in front of a thought leader or influencer and they like the product, it's the
Yeah.
same dialogue I have with a store looking to support the same brand and sell. So that kind of integration into lifestyle, into,
Uh-huh.
being comfortable with people consuming CBD, or cannabis in public spaces, like,
Yeah.
I see that happening more and more, where it's not going to be two separate categories, but it's like an integration of that, right? So I think, with, I can even say, with plant stores just,
Yeah.
like, emerging everywhere, right? Like, I feel like
Yes.
everyone became like a plant mom or dad during the
Yes.
pandemic. And I think
Mhm.
there's a lot to be said about the way people view plants now. And now my job as a marketer in cannabis is, to educate people, like, the same way that you would grow, your tomatoes, like,
Uh-huh.
maybe you will grow weed soon,
Yeah.
or like hemp. And I think normalizing, like, little things like that. Like, I have one of my clients had, we have like a grower series where we brought on like an expert grower, and
Nice.
she always says, she's like, it's called weed for a reason. You grow it just like a weed would,
Because
and
it grows so
it
fast and
grows
like
so
so
fast.
like whoa, it like takes over so quickly,
Yeah. So normalizing stuff like that, right? Like, it's not just for people that did it in their closet. It's like you can do
Right.
it in your, like, herb garden. And then
Yes.
when you get to that point, the next phase is, how do you incorporate that into your day to day?
Yes.
Do you want to use it as an ingestible and, make infusions and cook with oils? Or do you
Yes.
want to do it to manage your pain, or for women's health? If people are watching this, and, women with, people with ovaries, women, I don't want to just say they're women, but, like, if
Yes.
you are dealing with endometriosis, there's all these different medical related issues that people have, body issues, that cannabis or plant-based medicine can alleviate and support.
Hmm.
And I think, like, that integration or that acceptance is something that is definitely evolving, and it's cool to see, right? Like, I think
Yes.
with landing new accounts for my clients, being able to be in a really great store that's, like, in their neighborhood, someone recommended to it, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden they're just building out a shelf and they have, like, herbs, and then, or they have CBD. Like, I think
Hmm.
really, really seeing that now as a consistency and growing that category for businesses is really something I'm proud of, and
Yeah.
I love seeing, because it just goes to show that, the the dialogue is pushing into the commerce, right? And I think the more that we can normalize that, the better, for everyone, for quality of life,
Yeah.
longevity, for pleasure. I see.
There's another trend I was just curious about, like just kind of popped into my mind too.
Mhm.
Like, so before, like in California, you used to be able to just go and take your jars and fill them with whatever, like at the stores. But now there's just so much trash involved with like the cannabis industry. It's
Oh
like
my gosh.
even if it's glass, it's still ultimately is trash, because a lot of
Hmm.
recycling doesn't actually get recycled. Do you see like a shift happening in that? Are any of your clients working on anything like that? Is that a trend? I mean, it's a trend that should be happening, but
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is it a trend that will happen?
Well, I will say, from what I can see, the trend is a lot of brands are trying to be more conscious about packaging. There
Mm-hmm.
are so many limitations for anyone that doesn't know or hasn't purchased product from a licensed dispensary. There's a lot of, it's by law that these items need to be childproof for obvious
Right.
reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Although sometimes they feel adult proof because it's like impossible to open some of this stuff.
So true.
But because of that, a lot of those innovations in packaging are like emerging. A lot of that is plastic, and single
Yeah.
use plastic,
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, I guess you would call them like their joint holders or doob tubes, right? You get
Yeah.
one single joint, and then all of a sudden, like, you're done with it. Then what do? You just throw it
Yeah.
away. It's not
Mm-hmm.
really, there isn't recycling, at least from what I can see. There's some places that do take jars back. I don't know who they are exactly, but
Yeah.
at least it's cool to see like some brands say like what you can do with your jar, after.
Right.
But I know from my own clients, we try, the ones that we wholesale to, we try to be very intentional about packaging waste, about
Yeah.
managing that, not just in terms of shipping costs, for the partner, but
Mm-hmm.
also saying like, shipping one thing versus the two is going to cost the same and require the same amount of packaging. So
Mm-hmm.
the more, like, how can we figure out a way to optimize it for the both of us, where
Right.
we're getting rid of less, and being wasteful of less, but also managing that in the process to land the deal or whatever it is. So I'm glad that I'm having those convos now with people. I
Yeah.
know the brands I work with are pushing that to me too, because I do feel like, we do need to be more accountable to that, because we're
Yeah.
all part of that.
Yeah.
I think I am definitely part of the problem in some ways, because my whole career was based in commerce, and all
Mm.
the businesses I worked with drove online sales. So you can only imagine, like, you know,
Right.
it was so much, not even a thought, never
Yeah.
mind an afterthought, like, what
Well,
does it look like?
we also didn't really know that, like,
Right.
we were buying things on the internet, because I also used to shop a lot online, but we were buying things on the internet and we were putting things to recycle, and we thought that they were being recycled. But
Yeah.
now it's like, we're uncovering in the last like 5 years that like recycling is like a big, massive myth, that most of our recycling doesn't actually get recycled, right? And so now it's like, yeah, we all kind of like made those bad decisions before, but it's like now that we know, it's like, all right, now how do we move forward with like understanding that recycling doesn't always
Hmm.
happen? How can we really be like, conscious consumers in that respective?
And
But
it's
yeah.
hard because, like, we saw last year where cannabis became an essential product,
Mm-hmm.
which meant a lot of people's survival or day to day during COVID was to consume. Like, it's considered their medicine. But
Mm-hmm.
even in that way, like, that should show you that the amount of sales that cannabis dispensaries can drive is tremendous. But
Yes.
do people actively recycle or find ways to do that sort of thing? I wouldn't say it's a priority, but it's
I
great
know.
that we need to have, like, that dialogue is starting
Yeah.
to happen, even if it's not, this is not focused solely on a cannabis conversation, but
Right. Right.
as a conscious podcast, like, it's important because this is a new industry. It has opportunities to reestablish,
Yes.
what that actually means. I think that's both the biggest challenge and an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But and I care about that, because even for me, like, I might get a lot of things, as an industry person, as a gift, but
Yeah.
even for me, I'm like, oh my god, what am I feel like I accumulate so much that I
Yeah.
don't need, because I'm too ashamed to throw it away because
I
like I'm
know,
like,
yeah.
oh my
You
God,
become like a hoarder of little single-use things to try to
girl,
reuse. I
I
know.
am. I
Same
started
level.
saving boxes and I had this one box full of joints, these one boxes full of the glass related eighth jars. Cause I was like, what do I do
Amazing.
with this? You know?
Yeah.
And it's really uncomfortable because again, like you said, our recycling systems aren't really equipped to handle that. And so
Hmm.
it's just stressful.
Yeah.
Um,
And so,
but
yeah, I love, somebody here said, someone's leaving you
I love it.
messages.
Oh, Nigel, hey.
Thanks for
Um,
the hat comment too. That's awesome. I mean, yeah, for sure. We'll continue that conversation. It's important, like you said, to have these dialogues, to bring it up,
mhm,
to discuss it, so that way it's like people just have it in their mind as like their
mhm,
future business plans or future business models. It's just a good thing to do. So,
exactly.
what kind of advice do you have for someone that's totally new, wants to really dive into this industry? What is like the top three pieces of advice that you have for them to start getting in there and start working with something that they feel passionate about?
Yeah. So, well, one that I feel like the first thing for me really does start with passion, right? You know, I think even when I mentioned before, like I'm a nursing school dropout and I ended up going into fashion, like the same reason why I went from fashion to cannabis, like I've always
Mhm.
just had a love for products. So, really understanding what you're interested in. Maybe you just love numbers, like, and you can apply that in some sort of way, right? So
Yeah.
I feel
You could
like,
be an accountant. Hey, do they
yeah,
need
and we need
accountants?
that. We need
Yeah.
that. There's so
Yeah.
many aspects of cannabis where there's opportunities. So I always just try to tell people, like, figure out what you love. Like I love product and I love retail. So that for me already, and then I love people. So community, retail, and product, like that's literally the pillars of who I am and what
Hmm.
my business represents. So, and then secondary is, when you start experiencing product, you start creating experiences for yourself, really think about what you love about it, and the products that you enjoy, honor them and share them. And these are all small businesses, and in cannabis, granted there are pharmaceuticals that get involved, but a lot of there's a lot of red tape around cannabis as an industry. So the typical things in like creating sponsored posts, doing ads in magazines, like we don't
Yeah.
have those opportunities. We've had to really think outside the box in terms of building awareness and
Hmm.
reaching people. So when you get a chance to, if you like something, share it, say it, don't be afraid. If you really want to be in the industry, I think it's important to really be loud and proud about that as well, because that
Hmm.
also helps the normalization conversation. That helps, you
Hmm.
know, your community that you're a part of really understand that it's a part of your life and that you're a reputable and responsible human being. I think we need to be like, I try to incorporate accountability every day into my life in new ways, because I don't think I really had that in my previous life. And now that I feel so purpose driven in a way and passionate, and by my passion as well, I feel like I have to constantly ask myself, am I being accountable to myself and then
Yeah.
to my clients and my partners? So it's like I feel like that's also very important. So in the same way that you're sharing that information. And lastly, I would say, when you build relationships, really see it all the way through. I think the only way that I have been able to grow in the way that I have, intentionally, as quickly, whatever you want to call it, or as even as meaningfully, it's because I've really just cultivated real relationships with people.
Mm.
And some people, maybe I didn't see them in person yet, and I didn't break bread with them yet, but
Yeah.
there's something about really having a genuine, honest conversation with people, writing them emails, apologizing when you can't make an email, you can't like make, just being mindful all the time in the way that you build. And I think that has really helped me, stay true, not only to myself, and really kind of weed out relationships that I probably didn't need, or people that, I didn't really need to dive deeper in, or just, and or product that I didn't believe in.
Hmm.
It really helped me just kind of create this framework around maintaining my sense of self, but then staying focused on the goals and the things I want to build with people. And I think, like, in this like unspoken rule, like I think the minute that you stay really authentic to that sort of thing, it just like the doors just kind of keep opening.
Yeah.
The bonds that you have just keep strengthening. And the work just keeps getting better and almost easier, because
Yeah.
like in any startup and in anything that you build from the ground up, there's going to be problems, challenges you face, issues, setbacks. And, I've worked with enough startups to really understand that like no day is ever the same. But I think it's been more manageable knowing like where I'm at personally, where I stand, and
Yeah.
not wavering from that, and being really true to the relationships I have. Because the minute like people wrong you, it's kind of like, dude,
Yeah.
like either own up to it or,
Right.
move on. And I think like being able to have those real conversations when it becomes tough is like, has been essential in growing through this space. And building in a really meaningful, long lasting way. So
Perfect. Yeah,
yeah.
those are all such great tips. Yeah. I think it's always about like following, like you said, following your passion. And
Mhm.
sometimes when things don't, I'm kind of just rediscovering this, but sometimes when
Me
things don't
too.
really fit, like if they don't
Hmm.
fit, like it just means that that's not for you,
Yeah.
it just means that it's like maybe that's not like that's the direction you think you're supposed to be taking, but clearly it's not fitting. It's like that's not the direction. So try something else, and try
Hmm.
something new and see if that ends
Yeah.
up being like the right move for you.
Yeah, and I love that you shared that too, because like, sometimes like it's like, and I had to learn this from experience. So I'm not an expert in this. I've evolved through so many different client relationships, and a lot of the clients that happen to be close friends of mine. And I don't know if I would ever have had that experience if I didn't take ownership of my own self and what I
Mm-hmm.
stand for, and then bring that openly and transparently to the table, because it's kind of like when you are open with someone or you show somebody love, like that's going to go right back to you. And I
Yes.
genuinely feel in this industry the camaraderie is real. It's very easy to kind of like at least I feel like I've learned so much
Amazing.
better to like really seek out like things that just don't really last or hit, or like what you
Yeah.
said, if it's not really fitting, it's just not really fitting, and
Right.
kind of moving on, like
Yeah.
I think it's so much harder to stay. So
Yeah.
it's just like, just be open, be
Yes.
communicative, lean into that discomfort, and then just really like commit. I think the discipline there is a real thing. I think, it goes without saying, being a child of immigrants, like it's a huge influence in the way that I kind of try to just follow through on things. And I've
Mm-hmm.
started and stopped many things in my life. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like I said, I'm not an expert, I'm not perfect,
Yeah.
but I just try to be as like focused and forward thinking as possible,
Well, I
and
mean,
positive.
you're starting and stopping, and your kind of like ability to redirect is what's giving you. You're not an expert, you say, but really you have such a wealth of knowledge in so many different areas. So you're an expert in so many different things, right? It's like because you've been able to switch and change and kind of just really follow like your true passions and like what you really want out of life.
Yeah,
So tell
thanks.
us,
Yeah.
yeah.
Respect. Yeah. I
So,
appreciate that. Yeah,
of
thank you
course.
for those flowers. Like I appreciate, I feel like that came definitely with growth and like a lot of
Yeah.
heartache around of like a lot. I got a random call. Yeah, I feel like it's hard.
Okay. Can you repeat that? It cut out. I didn't hear you. Oh, I still can't hear you. Can you hear me? Oh, weird. Are you on mute?
Oh, let me
That's
see.
weird. Oh,
Can
there
you hear
you
me
are.
now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I thought I had it on do not disturb, so I was like, what the hell? I got a random phone call. No, I said I appreciate like what you said, but I think it that my ability to even get there like came with like a lot of heartache. Like I think my overt like love and like passion sometimes got the best of me in a lot of relationships,
Mhm.
professionally. And I
Yeah.
think I learned to just be a little bit stronger on my own like backbone.
Hmm.
And I think like it helped me get through a lot of like work trauma. Like I don't want this to all be like positivity, but like yeah, there's been some pretty
Yeah.
ugly moments like
Dude, yeah.
through this like industry that I've experienced. But I
Hmm.
think in falling back on like my foundation and like what I stand for, I can't say it more like that's helped me navigate so much, and also just like stay connected to the right people that really like align with me in that way. So
Amazing. Oh,
yeah.
thank you so much, Geraldine. Is there anything else you want to leave our viewers? We're going to share this on our IGTV,
Oh,
so it'll be there for
nice.
people to reference, and we can share it that way as well.
Yeah, well, I guess, well, thank you for listening. If you've gone through this whole thing, thank you for listening. One thing I will add is on my Instagram, I do a live series, and that's where I was connected with Laura, your co-host,
Yeah.
and it's called Pinay Fresh. I'm on a hiatus this month because I've been just dealing with a lot of like family related stuff and just trying to
Yeah.
get my head on straight because I don't want to force myself to do content if it doesn't feel natural. But I
Hmm.
I'm so proud of it in a way because it's connected me to such incredible Filipino women. I think
Hmm.
I've heard someone say like if you can't find it for yourself, make it. And I felt like
Hmm.
I was just craving relationships with more Filipino women and to
Hmm.
follow an example of a lot of them is to like build and grow with them. And Pinay Fresh, in its infancy over these last few months has been such a grounding thing for me to stay connected to my roots culturally, and to also just have really amazing conversations from anyone like Laura, who I really
Hmm.
admired from a fashion perspective, to
Hmm.
our Filipino grandma, who
Hmm.
is a TikTok superstar and like
Yeah.
my hero in a sense. Like I would love to have a grandchild that I just make content with all day and make people laugh. Like
Right.
that literally was like a moment in time. But if
So
anyone
cute.
wants to tune into that or is Filipino and
Yeah.
looking for a little support and love and guidance through, someone that is like you, that's
Mhm.
something that, feel free to watch it or stay tuned on my Instagram.
Yeah.
Otherwise, my work is Art in Times of Chill on Instagram. And that's it. Like I'm just happy
Awesome.
to be able to share my story, and thank you for having me. And
Oh, thank you,
it's so
Geraldine.
cool to connect with you, and I love what you're doing. And I'm I'm
Thank you
a
so
I'm a
much.
podcast diehard.
Yes, woohoo, yes,
So
yes. So
that's
thank you
it.
guys for tuning in, and definitely let's check us out on the Conscious Kitchen. We're here every other week now at 11 a.m. PST on Wednesdays. We felt the same way. It was just a lot of work to just be doing all this content, so we kind of scaled back a little bit, but we're here every
Yeah.
other week, and we're just so grateful to everyone that comes and shares their time. Geraldine for all her amazing wisdom today. Definitely share this with anyone that you think wants to dive into the cannabis industry or just needs some inspiration. And then Amfam just joined. We're about to
Hey.
end, but definitely check out the whole conversation. I'm about to post it on Instagram or on IGTV, so you'll be able
TV.
to reference it there too and check it out.
All right. Thank you so much again. And
Yeah.
yeah, have a great day. Have a great
Thank
week.
you. You too. So great
Bye.
chatting. Have an amazing
You
week.
too.
Bye.
Bye.